What you reach for and why. One of the things that I've learned over the years is that we don't always crave food just because we're hungry. I mean, sometimes we are hungry, but sometimes we're craving something that food has represented for us for a very long time, such as comfort, celebration, a reward, a break, a familiar feeling. Food has a funny way of attaching itself to moments. It ends up being kind of woven into the story of our lives. Think about it. We celebrate with it, we comfort with food, we gather around food, we remember through food, we show love with it, we even grieve with food. So it shouldn't surprise us that when we find life changing, food often comes looking for us even before we go looking for it. Now, obviously, food isn't literally coming to find us, but what happens is our neural pathways light up automatically. A season changes, a holiday arrives, a birthday comes around, and before we've even consciously thought about it, our brain has already connected us with the foods that have belonged to that moment. Birthday cake isn't just cake, it's birthday. Apple pie isn't just dessert, it represents family. Hot chocolate isn't just a warm drink, it reminds us of snowy days, Christmas movies, and slowing down. And whether we realize it or not, our brains are constantly making associations through food. That's why you can smell fresh bread and suddenly think of grandma's kitchen. Or you hear a song that takes you back 20 years and you can remember exactly where you were the first time you heard that song. And food works the same way. Over time, certain foods become connected to certain emotions, certain people, and certain seasons of life. And because those connections have repeated over and over and over again, your brain starts treating them like they belong together. So when something in your life changes, whether it's a celebration, you're grieving, you're adjusting, you're feeling a little unhinged, a little untethered, your brain starts to search for something familiar. Not necessarily because that's what you need, but it's because that's what you've always known. And that's an important distinction for us to recognize. Because if all you see is the sugar, you're going to spend all your energy trying to fight the sugar rather than becoming curious about what does the sugar represent. Now, if you're able to understand what the sugar represents, you've discovered something that's much more helpful than focusing on trying to cut out junk food or cut out sugar. Maybe it represents comfort or slowing down or connection. Maybe it represents a tradition that you've repeated for years. It could just simply represent everything feels normal for a little while. And that's worth paying attention to. Not because every craving has some deep philosophical meaning. Sometimes you're simply in the mood for dessert, and that's okay. But other times there is something underneath it. So, a more helpful question, other than why am I craving this, is what does this remind me of? Or what does this food give me other than the taste? And sometimes the answer can be surprising. Sometimes it really isn't about the food at all. It's about what the food has come to symbolize. For me, there are certain Christmas desserts that represent family and Christmas. And it's not even necessarily that I love the dessert as much as I love the feeling that comes with it. So stop trying to fight yourself. Instead, start asking yourself a different question. If this food represents comfort, how else might I comfort myself today? If this food represents celebration, how else could I celebrate? If it reminds me of someone I love, how else could I honor that memory? Those questions open up possibilities that were never there before. Food can still be a part of those moments. And I'm not suggesting that you remove the food from those moments. It's not, the goal isn't to remove the joy from eating. Food was meant to be enjoyed. The goal is to make sure that food isn't carrying the entire weight of something that it was never meant to carry. Because when it's your only source of comfort, your only reward, your only celebration, your only way to cope, that's a heavy job for a cookie. The more ways that you have to comfort yourself, to celebrate, to remember, or to find peace, then the less pressure food has to do all that for you. The beautiful thing about understanding what food represents is that you don't have to take the food away in order to loosen its grip on you. Because when you understand what you're really looking for, now that opens the door to where you have choices. And having choices is where the freedom begins. So you still get to enjoy the dessert, but you're not depending on the dessert or the junk food to do all the emotional heavy lifting. The next time you decide to reach for something sweet or something that's not on plan, pause for a moment. Not to talk yourself out of it, but just to get curious and ask yourself, what am I really hoping that this is going to give me? And then ask yourself, is there another way I could give myself a little bit of that today too? And maybe you'll still have the dessert. Maybe you won't. Maybe you'll just have a little bit instead of a whole lot. Either way, you've learned something about yourself. And every time you understand yourself a little bit better, then your intentional choices become a little bit easier. And I want you to think about this as well. Sometimes we worry that if we don't eat that food, that we'll somehow lose the memory. As if saying no to grandma's pie means that we're saying no to grandma. Or skipping birthday cake means that the birthday won't feel as special. Or changing a tradition means that we're leaving part of our life behind. But our memories don't live in food. They live in us. The pie didn't create the love. The cookies didn't create the laughter. The birthday cake didn't create the celebration. These foods were simply part of special moments that mattered. The love is always in the people. The joy is always in the conversation. The comfort was always in feeling known, in feeling loved and welcomed and cared for. Food became one way of expressing those things, but it doesn't have to be the only way. It may have been or felt like the only way, but it doesn't have to be. As life changes, it's okay for some of your traditions to also change. And that doesn't mean that you're letting go of the people or the memories or the seasons that shaped you or that make you feel good. It just means that you're finding new ways to carry those memories forward. You might enjoy the pie or the cake because you genuinely want a piece. And so therefore, you just savor every bite. Or you might decide today that you'd rather pull out an old photo album, make a cup of tea, light a candle, call someone you love, or tell a story about that person or that memory that makes you smile. None of those choices dishonor the memory. In fact, those choices may honor the memory even more. The goal isn't to erase the connection between food and meaningful moments. It's just to loosen the belief that food is the only bridge back to those memories. Because the people you love, the traditions you've cherished, and the moments that shaped your life are already part of you. And you don't have to recreate every memory in order to keep it alive. You simply have to remember. And then from that place, you get to choose how you want to honor that memory today. Food will probably always remind you of people you love, and that's okay. That's part of being human. That's our connection. But the difference is that now, instead of letting those memories choose for you, You get to choose what you want to do with those memories. Some days it might mean enjoying a slice of pie with gratitude. Other days it might mean sharing a story, looking through old pictures, cooking a favorite recipe with someone you love, or just simply resting and smiling as you remember. The memory stays, the love stays. The people who shaped you stay. And little by little, you're learning those people and those memories were never living in the food. They've been living in your heart all along. And no meal could ever take that away.